Michael, thank you. This was not planned. I promise. Great minds think alike. Oh my gosh. Wow, I get to follow Amanda. Gracious. So we are Aaron and Lisa Schmidt. It feels like half of me is missing. Now she's really right back there. Wave. The princess wave. We've been married 24 years. Yep. We're both college educated. We're personally sponsored by Larry and Pam Winters. I got my business started as a single guy, and along the way we built my first leg into a platinum business. And in my first platinum leg, 9 layers deep, that young lady showed up. And you ever heard, if you've been around for 30 days more, good things come out of depth? And so I found a way to get back in depth below 7 or 8 different silvers and found a way to work in there. And we've been married for 24 years and we build the business together. So a lot of the notes that I'm going to talk about, the things I'm going to share, this is a joint conversation that Lisa and I have on a regular basis. We both built the business single. She built it to the, I think, 310 level, 1,000 points, something like that back in the day. She's been in medical sales and medical account management and medical startups and everything else you can think of medical, except pharma stuff, I think. No pharma. But she's been laid off 9 times in that industry, so it sounds cool to make a 6-figure income in pharma, but not really. Not if they take it away from you. Let's give you a little bit of our background. I'm in tech sales and I've been in a lot of technology startup companies. So believe it or not, I'm going to go through some mindset stuff, as Mike mentioned. This stuff that I'm going to share with you is stuff that my sponsor, Larry Winters, who, by the way, if you don't know, we're going to 100,000 strong in 2024 Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So for all my new folks, please just check Upline and ask why that's important, because I'm really just going to talk to you guys tonight. Everybody else just kind of gets to be the beneficiary of listening. If you've been in for probably more than 30 days, you've heard what I'm going to talk about. Somebody said on an audio recently, it's my other Aaron, wave. You are so confusing me, dude, because I hear your voice or your name on a regular basis, and every time he says Aaron, I go, huh? So it's a little thing, but I appreciate you growing it like you are. Before I even get into this, though, all the pin winners tonight, y'all were crazy good, right? And Amanda, by the way, I thought that the idea of the Amway Wellness Guide, I think there needs to be an Amway Finances Wellness Guide. Wouldn't that be cool to use maybe on your QI? You can just ask them questions and they check a box. How bad are your bills? How often do you and your wife fight about money? How bad is your student loans? When do you want to get free? What was the last question it asked? Are you ready to change your habits? Doesn't that sound like it goes in the QI? Okay, we're going to get into that. When I got my business started as a young single guy, I was 27 years old at the time. I got my degree from NC State, so my parents get into business and they quit real quick. And I transferred into Larry and Pam Winters Group. And they had just really kind of made a breakthrough in their business, where they had been in the business since 1981 through 87 and had finished a rough patch. They were struggling in the business. They were working their guts out. And anytime something's new, my new folks, when this is new, it feels awkward, right? Learning things that successful people do to drive a business isn't necessarily wrong, it's just different, right? And when you've never been in that environment before, the words they use, the language they use, the thought process they have, it's certainly not employee mentality. And then you bring it into the Amway business and the LTD mindset, it's definitely different. It's a different level, right? So when I got in the business, Larry had come out of this rough patch where they were just working as hard as they could to get the business moving, and it wasn't working the way they wanted to. And Larry went to a meeting much like this. It's the power of association. And a guy named Gary Newell walked across stage and he said, well, they did pin winners. And Aaron, there was pin winner after pin winner after pin winner. And it was all Newell team. Now, we had 5 or 6 or 7 pin winners. Gary Newell he sponsored 400 people in 90 days. Collective gasp, right? Like, that's exactly what Larry did. He was like, what? Because he'd been busting. Is anybody ever sponsored 400 people in 90 days, right? And does that sound like astronomical? Wouldn't you want to know immediately what he was doing? And so Larry said, how do I get this guy's attention? And he went to his upline, which is the right thing to do, and he said, how do I get in front of that guy? And the guy arranged a meeting, and Larry sat down with him and asked the guy, he said, what are you doing? Because I'm 5-6 nights a week. I'm working this thing. I want this. Who wants to get free? Right? Larry Winters was after this thing. High school educated car wash manager. He and Pam had been through some challenges. They were trying to figure this thing out. They were fighting every night to make their dreams work. And they sat down with Gary Newell, or Larry did, and of all the things Gary could have said to Larry, you're thinking some great QI, some technique, something that he could do differently. And Larry, he said to Gary said to Larry, listen, I'll tell you what I'm doing, but if you don't get the why, if you don't get the mindset, but what I'm about to share with you, none of this matters. None of this matters. The how, the technique, Mike said it. In fact, it frankly changes from time to time or morphs a little bit with technology and different things. But the philosophy behind it is what Gary Newell started with. Of all the things he could have shared with Larry, I got an hour and a half. I'm going to talk to you, not me. This is Gary talking to Larry. I got a little bit of time here. I'm going to share the first thing with you. You got to get the mindset. Now, what did Larry do? He said, I listened intently. And I ingested it, and I said, I'm going to do this first, and then I'm going to share it with my team. And he took this little process and taught it to a handful of guys on his team, and they went to about 65 people. And from 65 people to 3,000 people in 3.5 years with a new philosophy. He didn't change a thing in terms of work habits. He just applied a new philosophy. And his entire business went from 65 people to 3,300 people in 3 years. Now that's the power of what I'm about to share with you guys. I wanted to set a stage and tell a little bit of a story so you get the background, because some of you have heard this before and you don't realize what Matthew Pesamente says all the time. I'll say it this way, I wrote this down to make sure I got it right. With repetition comes revelation. With repetition comes revelation. You are never too big in your business to get a fresh look at something. Mike Jones has got an enormous, successful business. We've got emeralds in the room. We've got big dogs in this room. We got people with businesses that everybody in here would want, and every one of them are still students of the business. You never quit listening and learning, okay? So don't let what I'm about to say just wash over you, because some of this you can hear on QI Essentials. How many people have heard QI Essentials, right? How many have heard just the audio QI, right? There's a bunch of stuff on the Baker team. I'm going to tell you, I mean, frankly, Jake Baker, there's a reason I have notes. I never write notes for anything, okay? I've got notes because I'm talking to a lot of the Baker and Markowitz team, and my folks are in here too, but I'm like, there's no better student of the QI philosophy than Jake Baker, okay? Just to be clear. So I'm not going to say anything that I didn't get from a Jake Baker audio, all right? So be prepared for that. I'm gonna go through some things. Let me just do this too. Larry said, when the QI philosophy, you can write this stuff down. When the QI philosophy goes from your head to your wallet, that's a good thing. It'll start to make sense for you. You can make money from it. But if you want it to be powerful, it's got to go from your head to your heart. It has to be what Larry calls part of your DNA. Not just something you regurgitate because it sounds good, but it's something that you believe in your core. Okay, now I'm going to tell you, I don't think that comment that Matthew Pesamente made about things that you listen to or things you listen to on a regular basis, repetition does create revelation if there's repetition and application. I don't think you can just listen to something over and over and over and start to get more out of it. I think you got to listen, apply, and then you'll get more out of it. Does that make sense? So Larry said, this is what happened in his business. We went from a mentality of sell, sell, sell. Convince, convince, convince. I got to get somebody to the plan. Everybody ever heard that thought? My new folks, I got to get somebody to the plan. Oh my God, did you hear the new pins tonight? This thing's exploding. I got to get somebody to the plan. It's all on me. I got to get somebody. He said, I went from sell, convinced I got to get some, it's up to me. And he went to the QI system that Gary taught him. It's not up to me. It's up to my guests. It's up to them. It's up to the person I'm talking to. Now I'm going to talk about, Mike asked me to talk about filtering and the QI philosophy. So I'm shifting now from I want to build a team. I've got a list of names that you heard last week. And now I'm going to start going through my list. And I want to take the pressure off of you. I want to take the pressure off of myself. If you're new and you're starting to filter, I want this to be the easiest thing you've ever done. Somebody up here at the Pinwinner said it earlier. This thing is exploding. There's a system in place. There's an environment where everybody that gets in knows that Core 300 is the standard. I want everybody to get in and know that the QI is the easiest thing you've ever done in your entire life. The reason we went from 65 people to 3,000 plus in a little window of time is because it was easy and simple and fun to do a QI, and you could get in and watch your sponsor do a couple with you. And because the process was so simple and the mindset made it 100% success 100% of the time, anybody new could do it within a week or two. And we could really quickly duplicate ourselves. So we went from sell, I got to drag somebody to the meeting. How many people have been through a dry spell where you just felt like, I got to get somebody to a meeting? And you've probably gone outside of your comfort zone and almost tried to persuade somebody to get to a meeting. Even relatives, because we say sometimes in the QI system, maybe you don't want to necessarily QI a relative, and so you just literally grab them by the cheek or something and drag them to an open. We've all kind of been there. I couldn't because my parents sponsored me then quit, but listen to this. People don't perform. I'm just going to read this. People don't perform because they try, get rejection, get discouraged, disappointment, and they step back. They put all the burden on whether or not a interview, a QI, goes good on themselves. Anybody ever been there? All right. Larry taught us to put the burden on the prospect and not ourselves. A simple mental, this is what Gary taught Larry and what Larry taught us. Take the burden of whether or not the QI goes good off of you and put it on the prospect. Let me ask you something. Amway and LTD aside, has anybody, you have to do this if you're on the Baker team. We used to do that when we had Zoom meetings. Have you ever been in a job interview? Have you ever felt like the burden to impress was on you, the prospect, not the company that was hiring? Could you imagine walking into an interview for a job and just sitting back? Right? Come on, bring it. Show me what you got. Right? You would think, oh my God, how rude. Right? And yet, a lot of the times, that's the way I felt in my early QI days until I learned this thought process. And Larry started to teach me things. I thought that I had to do all the work to impress and get that person's attention. When I got my business started, I was making less than $25,000 a year. The first 6 people I sponsored all made more money than me, because I learned a philosophy and a process that allowed me to talk to anybody and look at them as just being neutral about my emotions as to whether or not I was in control or not, or what the outcome was going to be. I was frankly just going through with a fresh set of perspective that radically changed the way I saw my business, the team I was a part of, and what I could bring to the table. So I'm going to read some bullet points. By the way, why do we filter? Don't you think everybody would want to be part of this? Don't you think, seriously, who wouldn't like to have a business like Mike Jones? Who wouldn't like to be debt-free? Who wouldn't like to have that lifestyle? Who wouldn't want to be a new Emerald or a Jake and Jackie Baker lifestyle? You would think everybody would want to do this. But the reality is that's not the case, right? And so we filter because it's a productivity tool. Let's just start with that. Let's start with this. We're looking for lookers. And I'm going to tell you something. When I hear that, I go right back to, all the sports I played in high school. Anybody play any sports in high school? Any basketball, football, soccer? Is that a sport? I played that. I played it for 3 years, so I ask it legitimately. Okay. Did anybody try out for those sports? Were they looking for just anybody to walk in off the field? Anybody that's ever played anything could just come on out? Or are they actually looking for people that were looking to be on a soccer team or a football team or a basketball? So it's not a weird Amway thing. It's not a weird LTD thing. We're looking to spend our time in productive places. So let's start with a simple, we're looking for lookers. We need people in general, but not any one person. That's a real good rule of thumb. We were talking about big lists over the last couple of weeks. Think about this for a second. The bigger the list, the easier it is to put a team together, right? You heard people up here with various width as they were going through the different pins. You heard 3 legs, 6 legs, more legs. Some of the folks in the room have 10, 12, 15, 20 legs coming to functions. That you're looking for a big team. You're looking for an environment where you can take pressure off people. You know how you can develop a really good team? Know what your end game is. Put a big team together so you don't have to put pressure on any one person, and you can literally just work with the people that want to be worked with, right? So when you're looking for people in general, what it tells me is, when I played high school soccer, I got an ingrown toenail on my big toe in high school, which is a little weird. Don't ask me how. But it was in the middle of soccer tryouts. And I had to go to the second cut tryouts with a cleat on this foot that was actually bigger than my left cleat. So I had a cleat big enough so I could put a bandage around my toe and still get a cleat on and still go out and play soccer to impress the coach and play with my team that I wanted to be on. I was a looker. I was looking to get in the game. I wanted to play. I was expressing myself. So you're looking for people in general, but not necessarily any one person. People can go weird on you, right? And so I didn't ever want my business to depend on one particular person. So I realized when I'm talking to people, the burden to get that one individual, I don't care what their pedigree is, I don't care what their education is, I don't care what their former success in business is, I don't care about any of it. I'm just looking for a big team, and if you're not the right guy, I'm gonna find the person who is. Does that make sense? It takes the pressure off you to try to impress or get or coerce or chase somebody. I hated that feeling. Who's ever felt like you were on the spot when you were sitting down to interview somebody? I wanted to be the one that was relaxed and comfortable because I knew what I had my hands on. Does that make sense? Okay, all they can say is yes or no. My sponsor was in Dallas, Texas this last weekend. Some of you may have seen this. Jeff Moore is a verified crazy man. EDC, I think, in the business, an enormous business, built a diamond ship up in Alaska, of all places. If you can build it up there, you can build it anywhere. And he asked Larry to come down and work with his team, and so Larry flew down there and did a small little attitude session for 1,500 people. And I got on the web, found the web Zoom like some of you probably did, and got on that webcast. And of all the things he could have talked about, he talked about all kinds of things, but I'm going to tell you something. He talked throughout the evening, he talked about the philosophy. And then the last thing he said before he wrapped up the evening, he said, the most important thing I've learned in 41 years is all they can say is yes or no. I'm talking Larry Winters, who's going to have 100,000 people under one roof in the next 2.5 years, who's been doing this for 41 years. He's a double diamond with 35, I think, diamonds now. And he said, the most important thing I can share with all of you, and I think most of you guys just missed that. Larry Winters just said this last weekend, all they can say is yes or no. It's a mindset. And when you realize that there's absolutely no burden on you to produce a yes or a no, all you can do is ask the question. It frees you up to go do as much as you want with absolutely no pressure. Is that making some sense? So if all they can say is yes or no, we're not begging and selling. This is Baker 101, we show and go. What does that mean? I'm not trying to get one in and nurse them and help them go core 300 and drag them to 600 and manipulate them to 1,000. I'm putting enough effort in so that I've got a big enough team that I can develop people at the pace they want to be developed at. You know what the beauty is of having 12 legs come into stuff? You can grow, you can go spend time where you're appreciated. Does that make sense? And so we're looking for lookers. We're not begging and selling. Show and go means I'm talking to you, but if for some reason it's not a good fit, It's okay. That doesn't make him a loser. I think he's a little weird, but it doesn't make him a loser. Because I still think this is for everybody, but I realize it's really not. Does that make sense? So show and go means I'm okay to show it to you, but I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to turn my emotional stability over to you. I'm not going to turn my future that I've committed to for my wife and my team and my partnership with my upline to a stranger who doesn't see what I see. Does that make sense? This is Larry Winters 101. People want what they can't have. Now, he goes all the way back to Adam and Eve and talks about the garden and the tree and all kinds of stuff. But I don't do that on a QI. That's a little awkward on a QI. But it goes back to I'm not throwing up all over my guest or my prospect or whoever I'm talking to about my business. I've got a good thing. I'm willing to share it. I really am. I love helping people. I know because this is listen to this, because it's a faith-based philosophy, I know mine are out there. I'm just talking to them, going through the motions, doing in faith, not just blindly going through the motions, but I'm talking to people knowing that mine are out there. And if it's you, great. If it's not you, that's okay too. Okay. People want what they can't have. He likes the takeaway effect. To me, I don't try to take it away from people, but what I do is not throw up all over you. That's where I go with that one. 100% success 100% of the time. How many people have ever walked out of a QI and said, man, that was the worst thing I've ever done? Anybody ever gone through one of those QIs? Oh my God. And the person was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's go to the next step. Right? And you're like, wow, okay. Interesting. Then I've done them amazing. And I thought God was speaking through me. It's like, I've been told I have a weird, deep voice. And every now and then I kick into this, it gets deeper. And sometimes if I just slow down a little bit, it goes deeper. And I can get into this. It's odd. And sometimes that'll come out. And I'm like, oh, that's my God voice. They're bound to get in and go diamonds. Not the case. Not the case. But here's what else it means. If I sit down with you, and because this is based on honesty, and I'm being sincere, and I'm genuinely looking for a couple of key people to work with, and we're having a real honest conversation about what you're looking for, and we want to see if what I'm doing lines up with what you're looking for, and maybe if it does, we'll go to the next step. There's no promises here on either part. But if it doesn't work out, it's still a success. Was I being honest? Did I get an honest response from you? Was I trying to get a yes or a no? I was just looking for honesty. I don't know what the response is going to be. That's not in my control. What can I control? You guys should be doing this. Attitude and actions, right? That's the easy part. There goes that God thing again. Don't prejudge. I'm telling you, this has been a good one for me. Don't prejudge, just ask the question. Do you understand what a platinum is worth? Some of you in here have broken platinum legs. Our 6% check on just one of our legs has been in the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm really glad I didn't prejudge the upline that led to lots of people. It's based on honesty. Are you really looking for 3 or 4 key people? Because I am. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I'm not trying to say I'm already a diamond. I'm not even talking about the size of my business when I sit down with somebody. But I am being honest about what I'm looking to do over the next 3 to 6 months, what my business goals are. This is a good one. Consistency is everything. It develops emotional stability. You want to get unstable quickly? Do 1 QI a week, just enough to keep yourself frustrated. I don't care if you do it with a good, right philosophy. Consistency determines emotional stability. How do you react when somebody says no? How do you react when somebody says yes? What do you portray to the outside? What are you telling yourself, more importantly? Can you get steady and just know you've already won anyway? I'm just going to go have some fun with this. Posture means sticking to your process, not being rude. Posture is not belittling people or putting people down. It's sticking to your process. Knowing that you've got a process of, I had a good QI connection, not a contact, I had a good QI connection. We exchanged numbers. We agreed that I was going to call you back, probably. I had a conversation with you over the phone. I've got a process I take people through. Posture just means I'm not going to let you at any point hijack my process. You wouldn't do that in a job, right? If the HR department's asking you questions, you wouldn't go, well, time out for a second. Let me ask you some questions. And we've all had people do that. Posture is not slapping them, because we've all wanted to just backhand people. But that's the wrong posture. Strong people don't need to do that because you're in control. You don't get emotionally wigged out when somebody immature doesn't understand the process. It just means you're probably talking to somebody who's young enough that hasn't been through enough interviews. I've stopped people and said, you know something, I'm going to help you out here, because you're going to continue to go through interviews the rest of your life. And I'm going to bet that some of them are going to go really good. Let me give you a little tip. Don't ever do what you just did. I mean, I said it with a smile. If you want the job, don't do that. Here's a better way of asking. Help them. I've done that, right? Just because I don't need any one person. I need people in general. Okay. I know I've got something amazing in my hands. When I was brand new and I didn't know that, association flipped that. The more I got around Larry and his team, the more I realized I had something special. I was part of an amazing team. Back then we were legally allowed to talk about different types of income and all that kind of stuff. Now I have a really good retail business. And I still talk about the residual side of things in code. Just kidding. No, but I'm proud of the team I'm part of. I'm proud to be in business with that guy. I'm proud of being in business with that guy back there. I'm proud to be in business with all of you, my team, right? And so when I'm sitting down with somebody, I'm sitting down with them. Does that make sense? And so I don't have to be a big dog. I'm part of a big team. Okay, I said this earlier. It's a faith-based philosophy, not a doubt-based one. I don't know. Are there really more people out there looking? Maybe. No, mine are out there. I'm going to tell you this. The night I saw the plan, I'm sitting here. There's a person there. There's a person there. They did not see it, and I did. And I looked at them kind of out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, oh my God, they're literally not getting this. It's a faith-based thing. I know mine are out there. I'm just going through. I got them. Okay. Last couple of things. Everything you do in the QI system is not results-driven. It's activity-driven. So the question is, and this one hit me as I was studying, thinking about this, why are so many of my folks' goals based on results? If this is a QI-based, action-based philosophy. Why do I have goals based on results? I'm not telling you to change what your goals are. You check with your upline. I'm nobody's upline in here till it's a handful of folks. Baker team seems to know what they're doing. 5 emeralds, everybody's going diamond. I get it. Okay, so I'm not trying to change anything, but if you haven't been, I think Jake's leadership coming up is 1,000 PV based. Okay, ours is a number of legs thing, but if you've never been a 310 or a 625 and that's in your roadmap somewhere, maybe it's easier to set activity-based goals that get you to that. I went to 1,000 and above one time, and I heard a guy who's not even in the business anymore, but he said, set a goal and then work backwards and create an activity plan and forget the goal. Because if you're trying to have a 625 business, but maybe it's just you and your wife or you and your upline and you're trying to get your business kicked off, It's hard on a weekly basis to see a 625 business, but you could probably back it down into an activity-based goal because you can control activity. You can't control results, not directly, because then you're out there trying to get, I need 6 legs. I got to get at least 25 people. So now you're working really hard to get people instead of relaxing and just going through the activity that you can control. Remember, activity-based, not otherwise, not results. Oh, this is just, I don't know, this got out of line, but I'm just gonna throw this in there. Who's ever made a phone call and thought your goal on the call was to actually book a QI? Anybody? I've done it. I'm getting new people started. I gotta book some QIs for them. No, you actually blow them out by blowing through their list, by trying to book things with people that aren't looking. That's what my mistake has been, so don't make my mistakes. I'll wrap up with this. What happened to my business when Larry was going from 65 to 3,500? I was 1,000 PV in January. By April, I was 4,000 PV. Anybody like that? I went from 1,000 to 4,000 like that. I went 7,500 in September. My business just exploded. By January, at Dream Night, we had a new leg that had been in 1 year and had 3 separate legs that all had 30 people or more at the function in each leg in 1 year. And they were rubies. My business exploded because I took that philosophy and I dropped it into a sharp 24-year-old couple that made 3 times what I made. But I brought the big team to the table and I asked an honest question. Are you, in the middle of tax season, Miss Accountant, and you home builder, are you, in this busy season of your life, honestly looking for anything? And they said yes. And the little $25,000 a year kid driving somebody's borrowed car had enough proper posture to guide them and lead them with the QI philosophy. We implemented that and their business exploded. That was before I found the Francis Leg, which is an entirely different organization. The QI philosophy works if you work it. All they can say is yes or no. All right, thank you.